Safety 365.
Welcome to Safety 365, where our goal is to help you navigate more safely through your daily activities and understand the importance of taking proactive measures to safeguard yourself. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Today's show sponsors are Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, and threat extinguisher. Don't just see a threat, extinguish it. Today we'll be talking about a pretty serious topic, one that affects not just the individual, but everybody around them. It's a topic of suicide. A little serious today, not as lighthearted as we usually go in our show, but I think it's one that we need to bring to the forefront because it's affecting a lot of us. Today we're joined by Vince Brancaccio, Chief Executive Officer for Help Network of Northeast Ohio. He's got an alphabet soup of accreditation behind him, MSSA, LIS, WS, and a whole bunch of alphabet. Vince, thanks for coming in, man.
Oh, happy to be here. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been around a while. Tell me a little bit about your background.
I was just saying earlier, 34 years I've been in the business.
You blinked.
Social
Right,
worker.
you blinked.
Yeah. It was January 2nd was my 34-year anniversary of being in the social work field.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's been a journey. I started off in child welfare here in Trumbull County. I was that guy knocking on the door and getting yelled and screamed at, and you're
Let me
trying
see
to
your
take my
kids.
kid away.
Right,
and
right.
that's not true. I mean, our job was to keep them in the home and keep them safe. Eventually, my career went into psychiatric social work, and I actually worked at Northside Hospital. Some people may not remember.
I remember Northside. I sure do.
Yeah, I was working on the psych unit there and did a couple years of that, and then eventually my career took me into management and administration, and worked at a community mental health agency. And ironically, you talk about when things come full circle, the department that I oversaw was actually called the pre-screening department. Back
How
in the
about
day.
that?
And I know you did a little bit of work.
I do a lot of, with Coleman. With Coleman, we did pre-screen.
We were it. And so our staff would go out and evaluate people who were homicidal, suicidal, psychotic, and they would look at, hospitalization.
You know, what's funny is that was probably especially niche area then, but now we're doing it right in the emergency rooms.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Excuse
we
me.
have
Yeah.
to. We have
Back
to.
then it was cutting edge. And then I will say this, then I went to addiction treatment. And then that's how you kind of came to know me.
Yeah,
I was over at
Neil Kennedy. Yep.
Did that for a few years, and then went over to Meridian. Now it's Meridian Healthcare. And by the grace of God, I'm the CEO of Help Network in Northeast Ohio.
Well, they couldn't have got a better guy for the job, that's
Thank
for sure.
you.
Yeah,
I
man, no, I
appreciate
mean, you know what? You can tell there's a person that goes to work and there's a person that's passionate about their work.
That's a good word.
Yeah, you definitely are. Well, I worked with your son. I know your family, so believe me, I know. I've seen the full circle. This guy is not just wearing the uniform of a helper. He's somebody that believes in what he's doing and trying to make a difference. And we need more people like you, for sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, we talk a lot about our daily lives and how we go in and out of them. Most times without anything major happening, but you've got 2 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got 3, and we look to our neighbors, and we see the kids running around, and we never know what kind of baggage everybody's holding. As a police officer, I saw a lot of that. I went to the house. You didn't know what you were getting when they answered that door, and you had to make an evaluation. So we're always I think in our minds we're like the animal kingdom. We're pre-screening people. We're evaluating. All day long. Yeah. So I just wanted to go on a little bit about this. Before we get too in depth, I see that Help Network of Northeast Ohio provides a variety of services.
Yes.
At least of the 211 information and referral, which if you're out there, if you're suffering, if you're unsure of what to do or who to contact, 211, they'll connect you with the people that can help. Don't go make rash decisions. Make the call.
Right.
Right.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And one of the things that people don't understand is that we are not just a suicide crisis hotline and information referral 211. We have a large amount of services.
As I researched you, man, there's page after page of everything you do.
But here's what I want to stress. Everything we do goes back to our core of who we are, the Suicide Crisis Hotline. Our agency's been around 52 years. Started as a drug info line down in Youngstown.
Wow.
And people who would call, it was a few nights a week. We had a handful of volunteers. They would work. people would call who were in distress, who was maybe under the influence, and our staff would just kind of talk them through. And then eventually, and I say this was a $2,000 shoestring budget, couple paid part-time staff.
$2,000.
Yeah, and then fast forward 52 years later, we are now this dynamic agency that takes 100,000 plus calls a year on our suicide crisis hotline /211 information referral. We have probably close to 1,000 people we do this with, face-to-face services, which a lot of people don't know. We have housing for people who are homeless and work with the homeless. We have staff who literally go out under the bridges, along the river, downtown, in both Trumbull and Mahoning counties, who engage people who are homeless and attempt to get them connected, whether get them into a housing and or get them into some type of treatment.
You know what I found out, and just way off topic, but in law enforcement, we came across a lot of people that were homeless.
Yes.
And a lot of them were homeless by choice. They wanted to be that. Like, they didn't want to be around. A lot of them were veterans, and they just didn't want to be around other people. They wanted to be on their own and isolated. Hard for us to grasp, I guess.
Yeah,
but
and it's funny you say that, because that's one of the challenges our staff have, because there are individuals out there that are perfectly fine with living in a tent or having some type of stuff to just keep warm, but they do not want to engage with our staff. And so what they do is they just go down. They maybe give them some water, bottled water during the summer, get them some hot chocolate during the winter, but they just continue to just build that relationship.
keep tabs on them.
And I'll keep this short because it's more about suicide, but we had a gentleman who we worked with for 2 years, just going down saying hello, hello, hello. And eventually he was like, hey, you guys are pretty cool. He goes, I think I do want housing. They ended up getting him housing.
We broke the ice.
Then he went into Compass Family and Community Services. They have like a work program. So he went through some training with them, ended up being placed in a setting, and this is a cool story. He ended up being placed in a setting to do housekeeping, cleaning. We were doing a video for one of our events, and people were, our staff went on talking about some of the things that we do, and they were talking about this particular situation. I said, wow, that's pretty cool. This guy's come a long way, had substance use issues, turn around, he was working for us.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, that's such and such. I'm like, holy cow, God bless him, man.
You know what? You're making a difference in people's lives, and you show them there is help. I think they lose they become hopelessness, and they lose that hope of getting better.
And I guess that's what I preface this with. I can sit here and tell you all the programs. I encourage people, go to helpnetworkneo.org, see all the things we do. But it still goes back to everything we do, we want to prevent people from getting to a point where they don't want to live anymore. They're in such despair.
Right.
So everything else we do, information referral, housing, rep pay, guardianship, all those programs are what we call prevention. We're the safety net.
Sure.
And hopefully by providing those services and referring to our providers in the area, my colleagues and our partners, that they can get the help they need that will keep them from getting to that point.
And that's what it is. You know what? You got to have tools in the toolbox before you can fix anything. And a lot of these people's toolboxes are just empty. They've gotten to that point. So we got to help them out.
And you said that earlier. Call 211. I also want to mention this. The staff that staff our 211 line are the same staff that staff our suicide hotline. We're one of 4 agencies in the state that do both a suicide hotline and a 211.
That's awesome.
And so the benefit of that is that when somebody calls and they say, you know what, I think I don't want to live anymore. I've had it. My utilities are about to be shut off.
You don't have to transfer them anywhere.
Yeah, you have to transfer them and go, whoa, time out. I don't have food. Wait, where do you live? Puts the zip code in. You have a food pantry right around the corner. Hey, your utilities about to be shut off? Catholic Charities has some funding. Let's give them a call. And I think that's good because we know our community, we know the resources, and people, it's a simple number. So I encourage people, call 211. We cover Trumbull, Ashtabula, let me start this way, Columbiana, Mahoning, Trumbull counties 24/7 for our 211. For Ashtabula and Lake counties after hours and weekends. And then our suicide hotline, which we're going to get into in a bit. We'll get into that topic.
It's coming.
We are 24/7 with our 211, 24/7 with our suicide hotline. It's Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana, and Ashtabula.
You guys are definitely spread across a large swatch of Ohio,
Yes.
and you're doing a good job.
Went
and
from
just,
this little agency in Youngstown to now we're lake to river.
that's it. Grow it, grow it, grow it. Get
Yep.
it bigger. Get people help. All right. Well, I tell you what, after learning a little bit more about Help Network, we're going to talk about, get closer to our topic here. And before we do that, we're going to start out with our safety question of the day. All right, Vince, here we go. Put your thinking cap on. So, what country has the highest or lowest rates of suicide per population?
That's
Told
a
you I was
trick
gonna-
question.
Yeah, it really was. I didn't know. I had to Wikipedia. You know,
You would put me on the spot, huh?
I wouldn't expect you to know that. This is just something we throw out.
I'll
But
do the I don't know.
that is
Educate
correct.
me.
That is correct. So there's a country called Lesotho, Lesotho. It's officially the Kingdom of Lesotho is a small landlocked country surrounded by South Africa, and they average 72.4 suicides per 100,000 population,
Wow.
which that's a lot.
Mhm.
That's a whole lot. And as for the lowest, was Antigua and Barbuda. They are a sovereign country in the West Indies made up of 2 islands, and they had 0.4 per population
Interesting.
per 100,000. So, hey, I don't know. I've always heard of Antigua. It sounds like a nice Caribbean
Sounds like a warm,
place.
right.
A warm place.
Warm
on the
place right
water.
now.
I think I'll go there. Perhaps surprisingly, many of the most troubled nations in the world have comparatively low suicide rates. Afghanistan has 4.1 per 100,000. Iraq 3.6 per 100,000, and Syria just 2 per 100,000.
It's interesting.
Wouldn't you think in the war-torn countries like that, and they've got so much going on, that people would be more at ease, ending it
Right.
and not being a part of that. But not that we want
You
to
would think.
recommend that.
You
Not
would
that we
think.
want to recommend that, obviously. But according to the National Institute of Mental Health, suicide was the 12th leading cause of death in the U.S. in 2020, claiming the lives of over 45,000 people. Now that's 2020. That's about 125 people per day. Does that sound right?
I'm gonna stick with Ohio. 5 people each day die of suicide in Ohio.
Okay, so
That's 1,800 plus families each year have the death of a loved one due to suicide that have to deal with it.
and Ohio is a very interesting our area specifically. This
Mhm.
little Steel Valley area. I mean, you talk about exorbitant drug use, alcohol use. There's a highly addictive factor here. I don't know if it's just our general labor environment that we've grown up in. I mean, this was a labor community. Did we turn to alcohol and then drugs, and then did it create a recipe for this?
Right. Hard to say. I mean, there's this area has a long history.
You could throw
I-
a dart at the board, right?
Yeah,
And wherever
yeah.
you hit, you're going to hit.
I just listened to that podcast, Crime City, or the one about
Oh,
the,
yeah,
the
but-
mob and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And it just amazes me.
This is a very unique area of the country, for sure. Not the least of which we see the least amount of sunshine per day or per year.
Right,
So that's the one I complain about daily. When I was looking at this, suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals between ages of 10 and 14. Third leading cause of death among individuals 15 to 24. Wow, young lives cut short so bad. And I went back, I'm thinking, well, I was born in 1964, and it ranked 4th for leading causes of death. So we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
These kids, I don't think we're arming them with what they need to be able to cope.
Yeah, and that could be a whole podcast in itself. And-
Absolutely.
Today we're going to talk about how the pandemic has also impacted that. And
You
know,
must have been
coping
reading my
skills,
notes
yeah.
because they're in here. Yeah.
you do the statistics. I'll do the backup information.
Yeah. I just picked some things like to kind of generate my knowledge, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
And Bill, our age group,
Our-
men,
Yeah.
high incident of suicide.
Absolutely. Well,
definitely gone
I
up.
think when you get to this age, you think you should have it figured out and stabilized. And unfortunately, you know what? Life throws curveballs every day. we don't have the luxury of saying, I was good yesterday, I'm going to be good today, everything's going to be good. You don't know what's going to hit you. I mean, we have people our age that shouldn't be passing away, that are passing away. Whether it's COVID or whatever else, this doesn't happen. People pass away when they're in their 80s,
Right. That's what we think.
not when they're in their 50s.
But we have people who are in those age brackets that suicide has increased.
Sure.
And again, is it due to the economy? Is it due to some serious illness? And they say, I don't want to go through all that, so I might as well die. There's a lot of factors
And
in
I've
that.
seen that firsthand on duty.
Okay.
I've seen that firsthand, somebody taking their life so their loved ones wouldn't have to care for them.
Have the burden. I understand
That's,
that.
you know what, there's something noble to that. At the same time, it's very sad.
Yes.
Very sad. And I've been on the other end of police calls where they had already committed homicide, and then were going to take their own life. They were going to go together. Wow. I think today, I think it was on the news today, Enoch, Utah or something, there was a house of 8 people were found murdered.
Wow.
What they found out was there were 5 small children, the husband, the wife, and then a caretaker there. I think it's going to turn out to be homicide, suicide. That's what I believe is going to happen. But again, what gets a person to that point, and we're going to delve into this, kind of brings us into our next segment I like to call You Don't Know What You Don't Know.
That's a good segment.
That's a good name for
Good
that,
name
right?
for it.
And again, this great music. I think that we're all in agreement that the loss of life for any reason is devastating, but it creates that ripple effect to so many outside of just the person that commits the suicide.
Can I pause you a second?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Just for terminology's sake, people don't commit suicide; they die by suicide.
I'll go with that, and
Yeah.
I'll trip up. So catch me
Yeah,
on
and
it.
please, I wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
But just to let you know, somebody who's attempted and survived, that can be offensive, because we like to treat suicide like any other illness. People die of cancer, people die of high blood pressures, whatever that is, heart disease. People die of suicide also, because they've gotten to a place that is so dark, they're so depressed or whatever that situation is, that they feel the only way out is to die.
Right. Well, that's the easy way, though, isn't it? I'm just, I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm in a different place. I
Right.
guess I'm just like,
I don't know if it's that easy, but I think what we say is we don't realize how many other people that impacts. And I think you used the word ripple. There's a ripple effect.
yeah. You're throwing a stone in the water, and that ripple is affecting so many people, your loved ones, your friends. It just goes and goes and goes. And I probably shouldn't have said easy way out. I just think there's so many other options, but people aren't knowledgeable of what those options are, and don't realize that there are people like you and the Help Network of Northeast Ohio that can actually give you the tools in your toolbox to get past it.
Right. Just to share with you, that you reminded me of something. There's a type of help that's called postvention, and postvention is for people whose loved one died of suicide, because studies are showing that people whose loved one died of suicide have a higher incident of suicide themselves. And so what's happening in many counties, including ours, we have teams and or people available for those families, family members, friends of loved ones who died of suicide, that can engage them and just talk to them and get them the help they need, help to get them in the right direction as to how to grieve.
I think it's great. No, that's
But
great.
it surprised me when I've been at Help Network about 8.5 years. I'm going to say, yes, I knew about suicide, but I didn't know all the intricate parts. And when I learned about just that one, it surprised me that people whose family members die of suicide have a high incident of suicide also. Higher, I should say higher, not
Well, I think it's a lot to get past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm,
Yep.
knock wood and God bless, I've never had to deal with that.
But we have, and I think
Sure.
in even our local community, we've had to, and our children have had to.
Right.
And not getting into details, but that's what's sad also. Is some
Sure.
of the things
Well,
that are
again, after
our
being in
children.
law enforcement for 33 years, I've seen my share of it, and I've firsthand had to process that. And again, I think we're all put where we're supposed to be and doing what we're supposed to do. I was given the tools to be able to do that successfully.
and help those individuals.
Yep. Is there any commonality that links so many individuals to choose ending their life? I mean, is there a commonality to it? Is there any one thing that you could say that
It,
this?
it, when I'm speaking to people about this, my comment is always this. And one of my good friends, Nick, who's one of my mentors also, he said, suicide is a mystery. Because if we knew, if
We
we
could
had
solve
that,
it, right?
we could solve it.
Right, we
we'd
create a
fix it.
vaccine.
And I always remember that. When
Yeah.
people said, man, why? I said, it's a mystery. But that's okay. We need to move on. And that's what we need to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I think I touched on this before. I said it's that sense of hopelessness,
Yep.
that there is nothing else past this.
And I think there's where, we have to look at the signs more than, these indicators per se, these other things behind the scenes.
Sure. So, what signs are we looking for? That's
Yeah,
good. That's actually very good.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna look down my paper only because we use some acronyms. One of the acronyms is PATH. There's purposelessness. Say it again. I don't know how to say it, but anyway. I want to try it again.
Purposelessness.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
That thing, where people just don't feel they have a purpose in life, and they just saying, why am I even here? There's a lot of anxiety. They feel trapped. They feel hopeless. Those are things we need to look at. I'm not saying every person who feels hopeless is going to attempt suicide. I'm going to say everybody who's has anxiety, but there's a combination of these things. If you see withdrawal, they're starting to isolate themselves. They're withdrawing from their peers, their friends, or family. You have to look at that. Anger, just this wave of emotions, recklessness, and mood changes. These are things that, again, we're not going to go, oh, are you thinking of suicide? But it is something we need to talk
When
about.
you combine them, it's not just one; it's the lethality of it.
Right.
It's
Right.
they got this, they've got this, they're showing this. Okay, now we've got something that's leaning us towards. They're not thinking properly, and they're
Yeah.
looking. They have a sense of hopelessness.
And you're going to, I'm going to say this, you don't want to ignore that. And I think that's the biggest issue is, what do you do when you see that? You don't go automatically, hey, are you thinking of killing yourself? No. But
More subtle than that.
More
Yeah,
subtle
you need
than
to be
that,
a little
right,
softer
right.
when you approach
But
that.
but again, here's the thing. Do's, do listen, do provide support, and do act. If this person's saying, I'm thinking of doing it, then we have to act on that. And again,
Yeah.
I could keep pitching Help Network, but call your local suicide crisis hotline. Call, even if you're not sure, if a person has a friend or family member, we talk to those people and we say,
So
here's
let
what
me ask you, Vince, if I have a family member or a friend and I feel that they've been exhibiting some of these signs and I'm worried about them, and I call Help Network and I said, hey, this isn't for me.
Mhm.
This is for Jim.
Mhm.
And here's what's going on. Do you reach out and contact them?
No.
We got to get them to you,
Right.
right?
So our staff will give you things to do, things to ask, and then encourage that person. Because that's the other thing. Don't keep it a secret. Get help. And the help, again, is as simple as making a phone call.
Now, these people be more, if you bring it to their attention, like, hey, I'm kind of seeing these things about you. I'm worried about you.
Mhm.
Are they going to push you away and then you're going to shut the door in your face?
And that's the call. You've got to do it in a way that hopefully they don't. Do it in a way that they don't put their dukes up. But I think just saying, I'm just worried about you. I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You're somebody somebody who I love or I care for, and I just want to make sure.
And I
that
guess
you
the
have
strategy is going to be different with each individual. There's going to be a different approach for everybody. I'm more of a head-on kind of guy. I don't beat around the
Hey,
bush a
go
lot.
figure.
Yeah. Well, gotta add
It's again, it's your background, but I still think you would do it in a way that's gentle.
right. I can read the room.
Empathetic.
I can usually read the room and apply something in a better technique. We talk about suicide, and we look at males are at 4 times greater chance of actually death by suicide
Yes.
than females.
Yes.
See, I got it right.
And what I'm going to quiz you.
Oh,
and
boy.
What typically is the weapon? I gave it away.
Yeah.
How do they typically die of suicide?
Men,
Yes,
guns every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Females very seldom.
but they're increasing. Females are
I
increasing.
did notice that when
Yeah.
doing my research that they were increasing. I think I had experience over 30 years, 30 plus years, I've dealt with a lot of these in progress, after the fact. Saved some lives. Had a lady that was trying to commit suicide,
Okay.
trying to die. Yeah, death by suicide. In her garage, had 3 cars running in her garage,
Mhm.
and I kicked the back door in and drug her out of there and got her breathing.
Very good.
Which, for me, was like one of those utopic moments. I did something. This is what my
Yeah.
purpose was.
Yeah.
A couple weeks later, she succeeded in taking her life. But you never know what they're going through. Again, we just try to reach out and give them hope.
Yes.
Um,
There is help out there.
but
And our tagline is "Help is here."
help is here. Yeah, I
Help
think
is here.
it's-
But there are people out there, and it's not just Help Network. There are no number of providers out there, counseling agencies and substance abuse providers, and they're our whole area has so many resources. I always tell people we have over 1,500 resources in our resource directory at Help Network. I do want to mention this. If you go to our website, helpnetworkneo.org, we share our resource directory online. And the reason we do that is I would rather people who are maybe not uncomfortable to make a phone call
Sure.
or talk to somebody, they would go on our website and look at some of the things, what to do if I'm feeling this way, or hey, I don't have food. Go on to our resource directory.
Well,
and
some people are just embarrassed. Some people are
Yeah,
socially phobic. They don't even want to talk on the
Right.
phones. I think that was something that came up in a survey since the pandemic.
And the other people we encourage is professionals. I would rather professionals use our resource directory on our website than call, because that way we can make sure that our phones are free to answer
Sure,
those calls
sure.
of people who are truly in crisis and
That makes
don't know how
perfect
to
sense.
navigate a website.
We look at this and we talk about how males specifically are at 4 times greater risk. This has always been a concern of mine. I know it's definitely going to hit home with you as well, since your son's in law enforcement.
Yes.
I know this only because I've trained him and I've worked with him. Great kid.
Thank you.
You've done well.
Thank you.
So I think we're both passionate in this area. Police, man, police are always under the heavy stressors and living in a world of hypervigilance. Like, we never let down our guard.
That's the
You-
issue.
We have no time to decompress, unwind. Just let down the guard. The stress, work schedules, PTSD that goes undocumented, and in a law enforcement community, we're, oh dear Lord, these guys and women, but
Mhm.
I'm going to say primarily guys, primarily a male field. They're dying by suicide.
High incident. With
Very
law
high
enforcement
incident
and first responders.
According to bluehelp.org, in 2016, there were 151 officers took their lives. 17, 176, 18, 186, 2019, 236. And then it started to level a little off. 2020 at 177 and 2021 158. These are the protectors. These are the ones that are ingesting this every day. They're ingesting the people that have taken their lives. They're wading into the family quarrels. They're wading into countless things, death by drug. And it all goes in.
And there's no outlet.
There's no outlet.
And there's that pride or that fear of showing weakness.
Oh,
And
did you read my notes? Man, this is
And-
exactly where I want to get to.
And my son and I have had these conversations, and he's blessed in that he has 2 parents who are in the
You're
mental health
constantly
field.
evaluating him.
Well,
Yeah.
we're there for him.
Yeah,
And he
absolutely.
knows if it's gotten that bad, he can sit and talk, and he can let down his guard.
There's such a bravado in
That's the
our
word.
in our law enforcement, with reason. We walk in and out of situations that should kill us every day, and we're untouched. We're immortal. Nothing can phase me. Okay, so that if we were to go and say, hey, you know what, I got to the point where I'm going to go see a psychiatrist on this one. I'm going to go get some therapy, and the word got out.
That's what I was just going to say.
My Achilles heel is now exposed. I'm not as good as you on my department, or you. You're all looking at me as I'm weak. Not that I got help.
That's
Trying
what I
to
was going to say.
process.
You're getting the help that you need to prevent you from getting to a place where you're
So-
going to truly need it.
Having said that, and I think I've brought this up with a couple other guests along different episodes, but I'm passionate about this, and I'm not saying I want to send all of our officers to a therapist. What I'm saying is, I think we have to take away that, what I want to say, the black cloud over getting help, copy, and making it. I mean, we drug test our police officers. We randomly drug test them. Hey, you don't have a choice. Guess what? Your number got pulled. You're going to go. Why don't we do the same thing with psychiatric care? Most are going to cross their arms and say, if I go to this, I'm not talking. I'm here for 30 minutes. Okay, fine. That's fine. We've opened up an avenue to allow you to come here. You don't have to go every week. I mean, it would get very expensive. But I think what we need to do is create an avenue where it's not seen as you're weaker than the rest of. We all have to go there.
There's a stigma attached.
Yeah,
Bill.
that's the word I was looking for.
And that's
Thank
the
you.
issue. And I think what you're relating to is there needs to be an outlet, and there needs to be the ability to let your guard down and show that you're human. And there's EAP programs out there, that are very inexpensive, that'll provide a handful of sessions to whoever confidentially.
Well, now I know most departments offer that, and there's anonymity attached to it. But trust me, nothing's anonymous. People will find out. These guys will know. People will find out, and you'll be looked at differently. And whether that affects you socially in the brotherhood or promotionally, you just don't know.
Right.
Not even legally. What happens if they find out?
And I think where we're going with this is we do have to break the stigma.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you allowing me to be on this show. These are the things that we need to be doing.
Well, that's why I brought you here, because, again, I've worked with your son, and I knew you would feel the same way on this, obviously from your background, but also as a father. These are kids we're sending out front line. They're military, they're paramilitary. They don't get a week recess. It's day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. They have to have that unwind. And they don't always get it. And sadly, I've been in the field long enough that I know I know and have personal knowledge of people that I've worked with that have taken their own lives, and more than I care to count. So, if I can use this venue, this platform, to try and bring awareness to it, let's do that.
Yes.
How do we get it to go mainstream? Well, that's probably going to be with money, but
I think. And that's the other thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be get into counseling. We have a crisis response team in Mahoney and Trumbull County.
Sure.
Where there's.
I was a negotiator there. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a CRT. It's debriefing.
Okay.
I don't know the acronym, but Mahoney and Trumbull County, the mental health recovery boards have worked together so that if a situation occurs where it's a lot of people are involved, whether it's something that happens at a school or first responders of having to respond to something that's pretty severe, they send in teams just to sit down and talk to them as a group. Sit down and talk to them individually.
Well, now you're waiting for the isolated incident to strike that match. I think we need to be able to incorporate it into the OPATA curriculum.
It shouldn't be call them. It should be automatic. But the police
mandated
departments,
annual training, if nothing else. Let's start there.
But the other thing is, and I have a list, but it's self-care. The switch needs to be shut off after shift. There needs to be other outlets, whether it's exercise, eating right, sleeping right. If you're a spiritual person, take care of those spiritual needs, because those things also help. But if we're 24/7 and in your former profession, that's going to burn people out. And so those are things
right.
we need to look at.
Yeah, and we do it. We're tools. At that point, I think we're looked at as just tools,
going through the motions.
and not the individuals. Yeah. So,
but
right.
going back to the public, I think it's important to share this information that suicide is preventable, and there's much hope and many resources out there, and I know we have a stigma attached to it, but we need to break the stigma. Mental illness is still an illness. Substance use is still an illness.
Right.
And you asked earlier, well, who's prone to attempting or wanting to die? We all deal with things differently. Somebody might have had an early, something happened in their childhood, some type of trauma that's just kind of lingered over the years, and it gets them to this place. There's others who've had that same type of trauma that
They blew it off.
Yeah,
Kinda,
it
they
has
just washed it away.
Everybody's different. Doesn't make that person weaker or the other person stronger. It's just we all cope differently, and we're not. I had this conversation with someone the other night. We don't have in school a class on how to deal with depression, how to deal with anxiety.
Right.
You know, we got classes on everything else, and we have the school of hard knocks as you described.
Right.
But in that school of hard knocks, there's no hard knocks in how to deal if I'm feeling depressed, how to deal if I'm having thoughts of suicide, how about if I'm anxious. And so you have to reach out and ask for that help, and then provide that.
On that note, that's going to bring us right into our next segment. I like to call reaction time.
Okay.
Just trying. We got to keep it moving. They keep giving me numbers saying, "Hey, we're running long." But this is such valuable information. I don't want to skip over it. I want to make sure we can get through this. So, you touched on it. There are signs that we can look for if a person's suicidal. How do we engage them? What's the best way to engage them? What can be done to help someone?
What we're doing right now.
Just making it more,
Just
talking about it.
make it normal.
Other
Make it
people feel this way. Other
Yeah.
people get through this.
Right. But I think it's, again, not avoiding it, not keeping it a secret. It's more about, let's just sit down and talk. Do it in the right place. Don't do it open in public. Take the person aside. Hey, man, I'm really worried about you. What's going on? Talk to me.
We've become such a bedroom community at its core that we just want to go to work, go home, shut the door. We don't interact socially. It's not an open thing. We don't even know our neighbors half the time.
And it goes back to our kids now. It's all texting.
Right.
Everything is this.
What's this generation going to do?
We're losing that ability to do this, and have these talks. And I think that's important too. There has to be social interaction. We are social beings.
Right.
We're not on this phone all the time and just texting letters and stuff.
And anybody that knows me knows I'm the worst texter anywhere. They text me and like a day later I'm like, hey, I just saw this. I'm not attached to that thing. I really don't care about it. So some of the things maybe we can use to reduce suicide, universal screening like we're seeing in the hospitals. People are coming
Bill,
in.
you really did your homework.
I tried.
You
I
did
tried.
good.
Yeah.
And that is a new movement. Now in the hospitals, doctors, PCP, doctors' offices, they start with a questionnaire by asking specific questions. Have you been depressed lately? Have you had any anxiety? Have you ever had thoughts of suicide? The questions are being asked. Do you use chemicals? What do you use? How often? That's part of the screening. It's not just, hey, what's hurting you right now? Or I got a cold.
We're not just trying to treat the symptom.
Yeah,
here.
but let's
look
also,
at the cause.
In my good friend who's my mentor I mentioned earlier, who said it's a mystery. He actually does that with the new residents and at the hospital and stuff. That's his job, is to educate those medical professionals on how to do that particular assessment.
I think it's great that the safety planning at the emergency rooms, trying to keep people away.
Yep.
Do they have anything lethal in their home that could be taken out of there, or so they don't get tempted to say, hey, I'm going to utilize that to end my life. Cognitive behavioral therapy, to identify and manage the thoughts. I mean, the thoughts are going to come and go. We're
smiling,
human.
Bill. Again, I compliment you. You did your homework. You didn't come in here and say, but cognitive behavioral therapy is a therapy that is something that is good to deal with depression and anxiety. There's a lot of studies.
Anytime you can talk about something, it does relieve that. I mean, that feeling.
But you touched on something. I always explain to people, talk therapy is not what I'm gonna say we, because I'm a social worker. What we do is something that is best practice, evidence-based, and CBT is. It's been around since the 1960s. And you said, looking at people's thoughts, looking at their emotions, how they react. And then some of those thoughts may be irrational, illogical, and so we dispute those thoughts and look at a more rational way of approaching it. And that's where depression it helps with depression because depressed people have certain thoughts and they may not make sense. They may be very irrational. And as social workers or counselors or psychologists, our job is to get to those thoughts and dispute them.
Gotcha.
So we can go. We have a whole nother session on CBT.
Well, you'll be back.
Bill, I do before this is over, and I know they're doing the times. We do need to talk a little bit about 988 and get that information out there. Did I
Okay.
stump you?
I think that's one on me. Well, I'm getting aged now, and things fall by the wayside. I can't tell you what I did yesterday. I can tell you my favorite
So you
songs
don't know
in
what
the 70s.
988 is?
I'm
Oh
gonna go,
my
I'm going to shake
goodness.
my head, man. Go.
Well, hey,
Tell me.
988 is the new 3-number, easy to remember, for the National Suicide
I did
Prevention
know that.
Lifeline.
Now that you said
Yeah.
it, I did
Yeah.
know that.
July 16th, it went live, and we as Help Network answer a 988 line. It's a national line, but we answer it for Mahoning, Trumbull, Ashtabula, and Columbiana counties. We still encourage people to use our local lines, and I could get into the reasons why, but it's not necessary. But regardless, we say use one or the other. If you're feeling that way and the number you remember is 988, hit it.
So if I dial 988 through my cell phone, that's going to take me to a national number, or will
It's a national number that will route it back to the community.
to that location? Okay.
Right now, the issue is it's going to go to an area code, and it's routed. You may have that number, and say you move down to South Carolina, which I'm sure you'd love to.
I've been
be
looking
with
at
your
that area,
families.
actually.
If you called 988 down in South Carolina with your 330 number, it's going to get Help Network.
Gotcha.
So there's still some glitches that the national.
As long as it routes it somewhere,
and
we
that's
don't
it.
care.
And that's
Let's
what I will
just get
say.
people service.
You got the same trained professionals using best practices. I tell people every time, I'm a licensed independent social worker. I have the highest licensure in my profession. I'm not allowed to work on that suicide hotline because I've never been trained in the assist. It's a specific best practice. I've never been trained in it.
Well, I
And
think you better get
appreciate
on
that.
that.
Yeah.
You've got all these other,
you
got all these other alphabets
things.
behind your leg.
No, but along with these other things that I have on my plate. But no, you're right, and I think that's what's important too is for people to understand. These aren't volunteers. These aren't people just they answer and go, oh, come on, you don't want to do that. Oh, you have a lot to live for. No,
Right, we're not patting you on the back and just saying it'll be better.
There's specific things that our staff do, and what they work towards is what we call a safety plan, not a contract, but a safety plan. Get to a point where they're saying, you know what, I no longer feel that way. I understand there's resources. I'm going to make this call, and they in turn, do that.
Now, let me get to the brass tacks of this.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but who pays for this?
Great question. Great question.
There's a cost involved because
Yes.
people aren't doing it for free, and there's training and there's education there. So who
Our
pays
agency for our suicide hotline, the mental health recovery boards, Mahoning, Trumbull, Ashtabula, and Columbiana counties are our major funders. We also get some grants and some foundation funding. So a lot of different pots of money, but it supports the suicide crisis hotlines.
Okay.
And now that it's national and this national number has been implemented, and many of our agencies are answering, there's also some money coming down nationally.
Well, good.
So it is supported, and I appreciate that. But I want to mention this to you too. 988. Going back to that, it's important to get that number out. There hasn't been this mass marketing yet because we wanted to do a soft launch. There's 20 suicide hotlines in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
And that's good, but we want to make sure that we're equipped and we're ready because we want to answer 100% of those calls. Now, if we don't, understand this, there's backups. There's backups to the backup. So the system that's in place is good in that regard. The hope would be somebody's going to answer, and that's what we want.
Well, 988, if you're listening, if you see this podcast, spread it amongst your neighbors, paint it on your house, paint it on the back bumper of your car. And Vince, get some T-shirts out there that have 988 across them, and then the Help Network of Northeast Ohio on the back of them or something.
And I think for you, given your law enforcement, we really want to encourage people not to call 911 if they're having suicidal thoughts. Because
our dispatchers really aren't trained to handle that.
Thank you.
They'll do the best they can, and they do a great job at what they do. Let me say that.
But what they are going to do is they're going to dispatch law enforcement, first responder.
Right.
Somebody coming to your house with a badge and a gun and a bulletproof vest is not the best for somebody who's
It's
having
not a
thoughts.
comforting look.
Yeah, for somebody who's
right.
having thoughts of suicide.
Right.
I tell people this. 98% of the calls that we receive, and it kind of fits in nationally too, we never hand off to 911. We are able to talk them down, get them to a place where they have a safety plan. And I want you to know, we do follow up.
Try and get them into service or something.
Yeah, but people go, well, how do you know if you don't even know? They might have still went and done something. We do follow-up calls. Not every one, but we random. And so, and then we also get permission from people that say, yeah, you can call. So we check on them.
That's great. You know, and that's one of the things I'll put a little blurb out there for Coleman. Coleman does a great job. They hired me as an at-risk navigator, and if people didn't make their appointments, clients wouldn't make their appointments, they'd send me out, and I would either have to make contact on the phone. If I couldn't, I went right to their house to make contact. Say, hey, you missed your appointment. Hey, what's going on? Oh, most of the times it was
and
just.
they appreciate that. They see somebody's there.
Well, it
who cares.
personalizes that service. It lets them know that, you know, we're not just doing a job. There's a passion behind it. They want what's best for you. And likewise, like Help Network of Northeast Ohio, they want what's best for you. They want to help you.
I'm going to mention that other 2% of the 98, 1% don't actually do anything. They want somebody to get them to the hospital. So they want the ambulance to come there.
Sure.
That other 1%, and you said a word earlier, and I picked up on it, are the completers. You know, those who actually attempt and or complete. But if you look at that statistically, you know, 98% of people who call, they want help.
Right.
You know, they just want somebody you can talk to. And that's why it's important that we know the numbers, that we know there are people out there that can help.
We just need to open up the dialogue. That's number one. Let's listen. Let's be better listeners and start speaking, you know, to each other, not at each other.
Right.
All right. Well, Vince, I tell you what, we're kind of closing. I'm going to wrap up real quick. Just kind of recap this in brief. You know, like you said, about 150 people just in the state of Ohio are dying by suicide.
5 people each day die of suicide in Ohio,
So
and I think we're getting close to 6.
That's too much. One life is too much when we can reach out and touch somebody and try and make a difference. You know, there's no reason not to reach out. You can dial 211. You can dial 988. Contact Vince on his cell phone. I'll give it to you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, but they are there, and help is available. You know, I really feel bad. I think our younger generation are particularly vulnerable. So we need to keep our eyes open, looking for the signs, and trying to, you know, make sure we talk to your neighbor, talk to your kids, talk to whoever you're involved with. If they're acting differently, just be an ear that they can speak into, be a shoulder they can, you know, lean on, and try to make a difference. If we could all do that, I think it'd be
One
better
more
world.
plug. And
Go
I'll
right
shut
ahead,
up.
sir.
Social media. Help Network, NEO, Instagram, Facebook. The way we're doing it, we actually post these things, you know, what to do if somebody's having thoughts of suicide, what to do if you know somebody who's having thoughts. I wanted our social media to be more geared towards helpful stuff rather than
Just putting out facts and statistics. Yeah, nobody wants to see charts.
So,
right.
So please don't hesitate to be a friend.
Gotcha. Vince, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day and your busy schedule to share your knowledge and expertise with us for sure. And I hope that we've brought more attention to the seriousness of this topic and encourage everyone to make the call to either 211 or 988 and find out how easy it is to receive help. You're not alone. There are people out there that want to help you. We're here to help you. And if we can do that, please contact us. In planning ahead, I'd just like to say we're going to have some more interesting topics coming up and other educated people, experts in the field like Vince here. I want you to tune in. You might learn something. You never know. Common sense is not that common. If you don't have it, borrow it from your neighbor.
There you go.
Special thanks to our show sponsors, Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, providing safety and security to homes, schools, churches, and business locations across 42 states in the U.S. and internationally in 6 countries. Visit them at www.bolostick.com. And a new sponsor, Threat Extinguisher. Don't just see a threat, extinguish it. Learn more about them at www.threatextinguisher.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have your business advertised as a sponsor, go to safety365.us and contact us via email podcast@safety365.us. We'd love to have you, love to have your assistance. And as always, thank you to the Trumbull Career and Technical Center for making this podcast possible. For Safety 365, I'm Bill Barna, reminding you to be aware, be proactive, and stay safe.